Okay. Welcome to those in attendance at this remote meeting, the local review body of Aberdeen City Council. Please note that the meeting will be recorded and published online for public access after the meeting. You're also reminded to note that we may have members of the public or press observing today's proceedings. Can I ask those who are observing today's meeting to keep their microphones and cameras switched off throughout? Can members of the review body leave their cameras on but mute their microphones when not speaking? As the local review body contains quasi-judicial business, members are reminded that they should not leave the meeting during consideration of any of the reviews. This meeting has been convened in response to 3 requests for a review of the decision taken by the appointed officer under the Council scheme of delegation. Members of the local review body have before them copies of the review documents as listed in the notice calling the meeting. For information, Councillor Lawrence will not participate in the first 2 reviews and Councillor Cook will not participate in the 3rd review, given that reviews are located within their electoral wards. I'll now ask Mr. Marson, the Assistant Clerk, to outline the procedure to be followed in the conduct of these reviews and to take a roll call of the members present. Mr. Marson.
Thank you, Chair. Members have the procedure note which was circulated with the meeting papers and is intended to set out the wider framework within which the review process operates. The first task for the review body is to come to a decision on whether the review documents contain sufficient information for the case to be determined without further procedure, and by that it is meant without further information or representations. The regulations governing the local review process require that all matters which the applicant intends to raise in the review must be set out in or accompany the notice of review. The focus of the review should be on the basis of what was before the appointed officer when a decision was made, and only in exceptional circumstances will new or additional matters be permitted to be taken into account. The circumstances in which additional matters can be taken into account are set out in the legislation and will be addressed by the LRB's advisors where relevant. The review should take the form of a structured discussion led by the Chair to consider the matter set out in the notice of review before you, and I will conclude by drawing your attention in particular to points 10 to 12 of the procedure note.
Thank you, Mr. Marson. Turning to the consideration of the first review, in respect of the decision to appeal against the condition which was attached to the approval for the application for the change of use from domestic outbuilding to Class 1A shops, financial, professional and other services, retrospective, at 43 Fairview Parade, Aberdeen, AB 22 8ZX. The planning reference is 250079. We'll now hear from the planning advisor in attendance, Ms. Lucy Green, who will provide us with a brief description of the application process and reminder of the reasons for the review in regards to the conditions. I point out that Ms. Green attends today's meeting to provide us with the necessary professional planning guidance because she has not been involved in the earlier consideration of the application under review. Ms. Green will not, however, be asked to express any view on the merits of the proposed development, and in effect, her role will be a neutral one involving the provision of factual information and guidance only. Ms. Green, over to you.
Thank you, members. I'll just share my presentation. So this review is into refusal of an application at 43 Fairview Parade for the change of use of a domestic building to Class 1A, which is shops, financial, professional and other services. And in this case, it's a hairdresser's. And the request for review is against conditions that were attached to the application, which was approved under delegated powers. And the review has been submitted with all the necessary information within the time limit of 3 months following the decision. And the applicant has confirmed there are no new matters raised within the submissions. In terms of procedure, the applicant is content for the review to proceed on the basis of the information submitted. So I'll provide some background information before handing back for members to decide how to proceed. And this is the location plan. Fairview Street down here and Bridge of Don, and Fairview Parade here. And this is the property, the house, which has been extended. And this is the location of the outbuilding in question. I'll just move on to an aerial photograph, where you can see the open space just to the side of the property. And this is the building in question. So it would be accessed, or it is accessed, along a path along the side within the applicant's property, and just in through there. So the permission has been granted for the use of the outbuilding as a hairdresser's, and this is a question of the hours of operation. And that's the site plan. Just move through these quickly. They are the elevations of the house and the outbuilding just here. And then the building itself, which was built under permitted development rights as part of the domestic property. And that's a view from the rear. You can just see the roof of the building in question just there. And this is the applicant's house. And then there's 3 other houses along here. So a few views of the cabin that's in use as the hairdressers. And that's looking along the path that provides access to it. You can just see the edge of the salon cabin building there. And that's the rear garden. So that's kind of the view that you would get as you came out of the outbuilding. And this is the applicant's house. And that's the neighbour there, 2 other neighbours. And that's a view looking down the side of showing the path that's used for access. And this is a car park that's nearby within Fairview Parade. And then some 3D aerial Google images. So this is the cabin here. So the reason for the decision, which was obviously approval of the application, included this bit that I put in bold, which is more relevant, that the use of the outbuilding as a salon would allow for the continuation of an existing business from a residential home, and it would be subject to a condition limiting opening hours, in particular during the weekend, and the proposal would not have a detrimental impact on the residential amenity of the neighbours on that basis. And the condition in question is this one, which currently restricts the hours of operation to 9 to 5 Monday, Thursday and Friday, 9 till 8 on Tuesday and Wednesday, and 9 till 2 on Saturday, and shall not operate on Sunday. So for the applicant, this is a summary of their statement. They seek a modification of the hours to 9 till 9 Monday to Friday, 9 till 6 on Saturday and closed on Sunday. And they state that the hours would provide flexibility as the salon would operate late on 2 evenings a week and on a flexible basis, and that the proposal is supported by policies, those encouraging small business and home working, and that it would provide no impact on residential amenity. In terms of noise policy, the applicant states that this requires development doesn't create unacceptable disturbance, which it wouldn't. They state that the salon is a single chair appointment only business and that there are no amenity issues. They also request a definition of the hours, that's meant to say, and that should mean only times when clients are present to allow later cleaning. So they state that the requested amendment does not create a precedent, as a hair salon is a uniquely low impact business, and that it would allow the business to thrive with local economic and social benefits, that the applicant could satisfy client demand while balancing family life, and that environmental health was supportive. So that's what they would like the condition to say, that the salon should only be open to clients between the hours of 9 till 9, Monday to Friday, 9 till 6 on Saturday, with no client appointments on Sunday, and that access outside those times would be permitted for things such as cleaning and restocking, etc. But just before I hand back for members to decide how to proceed, the consultations, environmental health had no objection, stating that the existing use of the premises as a home salon didn't appear to have a detrimental impact on local amenity, and they nevertheless ask for controls on the hours of use. And they also state that the premises should be used only as a hair salon and not for another purpose. And yeah, the hours that they recommended were from 8 till 9. Roads team had no objections, and the community council, there was no response received. There were 14 representations of support, and they stated that there were no parking issues, no noise issues, and sufficient parking in the area, and also that they were in support of a local business. So at that point, I'll hand back to the convener for members to decide how to proceed.
Thank you, Ms. Green. We now need to consider whether we have sufficient information in front of us today to take a decision on the application. Members, remember that if you feel you have enough information to make a decision, you can request that further written information be provided, hearings be arranged, or a site visit be undertaken. I feel we have sufficient information to make a decision, and no other procedures are required. So I'm happy to proceed. Councillor Cook, you happy to proceed?
Yep, happy.
Councillor Thompson?
Happy to proceed.
Councillor MacDonald?
Agree.
We'll proceed then. As members feel they have sufficient information, we'll now hear from Ms. Green on the relevant policies and considerations for this review. Ms. Green?
Yeah, I'll share my screen again and go through the policies. Okay, so in terms of the development plan considerations, policies in both the local development plan and national planning framework 4 are relevant. And these are the ones that are most relevant in this case. The properties in an area zoned under policy H1 residential areas. Also relevant is the policy on design, quality placemaking, and then policies 1, 2 and 3 in NPF 4, and also policy 26 business and industry. So I'll just run through those on separate slides. So this is the business and industry policy in NPF 4, and it basically promotes and facilitates business and industrial uses, and in particular paragraph B, which is development proposals for home working, live work units and micro businesses, will be supported where it's demonstrated that the scale and nature of the proposed business and building would be compatible with the surrounding area, and there's no unacceptable impact on amenity or neighbouring uses. So policies 1 and 2 I've just put on slides as well, as they're relevant in every case. Policy 1 on tackling climate and nature crises. So when considering all development proposals, significant weight should be given to the climate and nature crises. And also policy 2 on climate mitigation and adaptation. And in particular, development, just jumping to section B here, development proposals being cited and designed to adapt to current and future risks, and also in paragraph A to minimise greenhouse gas emissions. So sort of local living would be relevant in terms of those paragraphs, having a business that allowed for local living. Policy 3 on biodiversity, just to highlight this paragraph C, where for local development, measures should be proportionate to the scale and nature of the development. So although this isn't a householder development, because it's a change of use to class 1, it's worthy of note that for this sort of scale of development, individual householder development, they would actually be excluded. So that's relevant in terms of considering the proportionate nature and scale in terms of this development. Local development plan policies. So this is within a residential area. So proposals for non-residential uses within those areas would be supported if they are considered complementary to residential use, or it can be demonstrated that the use would cause no conflict, a nuisance to residential amenity. And looking at design policies, and the 6 qualities are relevant here. In particular, I picked out this one, sustainable, which includes use of resources to allow people to live, work and stay in their area. In terms of evaluation, as we know, the Planning Act requires all applications to be determined in accordance with the development plan unless material considerations indicate otherwise. And the basis for decision in this case, would there be an adverse impact on residential amenity by the increase in the hours of operation? And in terms of the decision, members may alter or remove the condition. So does the proposal comply with the development plan as a whole, or are there material considerations weighing for or against? And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Ms. Green? Councillor MacDonald?
Yes. Can I just ask about the conditions that were imposed initially, and they were very specific compared to the other, 2 groupings, one from the applicant and then the environmental health saying, from 8 till 9. I just want to understand a bit better about how they came about. Were they imposed or were they negotiated with the client? Do you know? The applicant, I should say.
I believe there was some discussion with the applicant, and the report of handling notes the hours that were applied for, which I can't recall off the top of my head, but they were less than these particular hours. So yes, the logic used as described in the report of handling was that the hours would be less at a weekend, and other than that there was discussion about the weekday hours. So I can find the section of the report where it just says.
And how long has the business been operating, please?
I don't know. I believe it was reported as an enforcement case. I'm not sure that I haven't seen anywhere that says how long it's been operating for.
Thank you, because it's just to try and understand the full story of the hours and whether, you know, what impact it may or may not have in terms. Can I ask as well, where the request is about private domestic use of the salon, could that be for anything? Or, you know, when you get class 1 use, can it then just be transformed to being a you know, use of the client at any time?
Well, class 1 includes other uses, so shops and financial services, etc., not just to hairdressers. Just going back to that's just the hours that were requested. So there, if you can see that, is that large enough?
Yes, that's helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, and that's the condition on the hours. Yes, so in terms of the use, I mean, obviously, if there's a change of use, that it would become class 1 rather than a domestic use. And that class 1 would allow for a change to a shop or financial and professional services mainly available to the members of the public.
Councillor Thompson?
Thanks, convener. Yeah, it's obviously a small business with 1 or 2 clients at a time. I'm just thinking, if, say, for example, they were to take on a nail technician, would that be classified as like a change of use? I'm just thinking that would mean more footfall in the area, which could potentially cause disturbance. Is there a possibility of, well, is it possible to say this is a small business and it should remain a small business if the hours are going to be extended? Thanks.
No, I mean, it's obviously if they expanded the floor space, that would likely need permission, but not if they took on somebody else, because it's through this approval, it already has the change of use to class 1, so that would include taking on a nail technician, which might be ancillary anyway, but yeah, it's only restricted in terms of the size.
Can I ask, it said somewhere in the papers that it was by appointment only. Is that all operating hours or just through the extended hours?
I mean, that's not controlled through the planning process. So, I mean, just in terms of the size, I suppose that there would be a single chair. I think the only time where there might be more than 1 client is if there's, you know, like a crossover and somebody's having their hair dyed and while they're waiting, someone else is having the haircut, for example. That could be the only time there's more than 1.
Councillor MacDonald, do I see your hand up again?
Yeah, I'm still trying to understand the kind of creep of hours and so on, and that does worry me a little. You know, that you can get an application at some level of activity in the local neighbourhood that is manageable, but then, you know, you push it a bit further and push it a bit further, and so I just want to understand particularly why the change, blanket change, has been requested now from the applicant, other than, you know, obviously to try and expand business, one would have thought, and why that has happened now, and what impact that might have in terms of nuisance for neighbours, which is not apparent to me yet.
I mean, I can only really say, I suppose, what's in the statement, which is that it's to allow for flexibility, that their intention is to only work late two nights, but to provide for that flexibility. They want to have the ability to do it on any 2 nights, But if
And if we do that as a planning authority, but we're giving like just a blanket anything, it could, they don't have to be restricted to doing 2 nights, do they? They could do 3 or 4 if they so wished. If we then say it's fine to go from Monday to Friday 9 to 9 and Saturday 9 to 6, or even go from 8 to 9 every day other than Sunday. Is that correct?
yes, that's correct. You could alter the condition to a different set of hours. That would be another possibility, to leave it as it is, to do what's been applied for, or to alter the condition.
Councillor Cook?
Yeah, and it's kind of just a follow-up to that one, really. In that, reading the papers, it looked like there were 14 representations, and they were all supportive. But I guess that would have been supportive on the basis of what was initially requested. If given that the hours of opening are now being asked for something more, would we need to go back and ask the people who made the representations in the first place?
Well, the process here is that they've appealed the condition to LRB, so there isn't a requirement to re-notify neighbours. So we'd just have to consider it, as you said, in terms of the support being for the previous proposal.
Okay, any more questions? No? Okay. Right. In accordance with procedure note circulated, the local review body will now discuss and decide the manner in which the review is to proceed. I would highlight that all representations related to the case have been considered and taken into account. We now move to determination. I would be comfortable upholding the officer's decision. Anybody feel anything different? Councillor Cook?
I would be inclined to allow them to open till 5 o'clock on a Saturday.
Okay, so you're saying 9 to 5, 6 days a week?
I'd go for what they originally asked for.
Okay.
Basically, yeah.
Councillor MacDonald?
So I'm not happy with going 9 to 9 every day of the week and 9 to 6 on a Saturday. And so if the consensus is to go for 9 to 5 Monday, Thursday, Friday, and then I can't remember what my T is, and 9 to 8, and then change the Saturday one from 9 to 5 as Councillor Cook suggests, I could go. I would be okay with that, but I'm not happy to go to the 9 to 9 and 9 to 6 and just leave it as just any 2 evenings, because I don't think that's tight enough.
Okay, so if I can sum up, Councillor Cook, you're saying 9 till 6, 6 days a week. Councillor MacDonald, you're agreeing with that, yeah?
Right.
No, sorry,
Is that what you, Councillor
Sorry.
Cook? Could you just outline exactly what you're thinking day by day, and because I'm not sure what you're suggesting.
I was just going to go for what they originally asked for in the initial application. So it was I think it's on page 38 of the pack. So it was like 9 till sorry.
9 to 5.
Yeah,
Monday.
sorry, that's that's what is now being shown on screen is what they originally asked for. And I'll be okay with that.
So that's not the condition that's in there at the moment, is it?
Sorry, can I take in Lucy for speaking? Lucy?
Yeah, sorry, I was just about to say the same thing, that's more restrictive than what they've got because they've got Tuesday and Wednesday 9 till 8, as was requested, but then Monday, Thursday and Friday they've got 9 till 5, whereas they requested 9 till 2:30. So would you be proposing leaving it as per the condition 9 till 5 on Monday, Thursday and Friday?
Yeah,
Tuesday
sorry.
and Wednesday
Just,
9 till 8.
yeah, just to clarify, I'd be happy with 9 till 5 on Monday, Thursday and Friday, and actually 9 till 5 on a Saturday as well.
And 9 to 8 on Tuesdays and Wednesdays, and closed on a Sunday. So
Yeah.
really, it's only varying the Saturday from 9 to 2 to 9 to 5.
Yeah,
I
basically.
would go with that.
Okay, that's 2. Councillor Thompson?
Yeah, I think with what's just been discussed there, I would be happy with that, because I think we do want to support a small local business, and certainly with hairdressing it can be quite seasonal. So I think having the longer hours on a Saturday to accommodate people who work during the week and having the 2 later nights would be helpful to the business. Plus, I think it strikes that balance between the nature of the demands of the business and also the residential amenities. So I'd be happy to go for what's just been proposed.
Well, I'll make it unanimous. I'm quite happy to go with that. I think we do need to support a local business. I don't see a problem with it, and I think what's been proposed is eminently sensible. So, the local review board has therefore agreed to vary, I think would be the word with it, the condition. Is that okay, Lucy?
Yes, that's fine.
Okay. Please note that a decision notice from today's meeting will be issued to the applicant or agent in the forthcoming days. Thank you all. That's number 1 done. Right. Turning to consideration of the second review. And I've got stuff coming up my screen. In respect of the decision to refuse the application for the erection of a 2-storey extension to the rear at 148 Victoria Street, Dice, AB 217BE. The planning reference 250366. We will now hear from the planning advisor in attendance, Ms. Lucy Green, who will provide us with a brief description of the application proposals and a reminder of the reasons why the application was received. I'd like to point out that Ms. Green attends today's meeting to provide us with the necessary professional guidance, because she has not been involved in the earlier consideration of the application under review. Ms. Green will not, however, be asked to express a view on the merits of the proposed development, and in effect her role will be a neutral one involving the provision of factual information and guidance only. Ms. Green, over to you.
Thank you. I'll just share my screen again. So this is a request for a review against refusal of the application at 148 Victoria Street for the erection of a 2-storey extension to the rear. And it was submitted with all the necessary information within the time scale. The applicant indicated that there are no new matters within the submissions and that they were content to proceed on the basis of the information submitted. So I'll provide some background information before handing back for members to decide how to proceed. So this is the site location plan, the detached house here on the corner of Victoria Street and Gladstone Place. And I've got a couple of photographs which are taken from the applicant's statement for the front elevation as existing with the original side extension. And that would remain unaltered. And this is taken from Gladstone Place, and you can see the side extension and the garage, which would be demolished, and also this rear block, which would be demolished, and the dormers, which would be removed as well. And that's taken from Victoria Street, just showing the application house there, and the neighbour's house, and then the view through to the back. And a 3D street view image. So this is the existing site layout with the existing side extension, and this is the garage to the back. You can see that under the proposal, the garage would be removed. The garage was here, and this extension would be built with a porch just here, and the extension across the rear of the house. And I'll just move on to the floor layouts. So the existing floor layout here, and then this block would be removed and the garage removed, and the extension erected, and that would be the ground floor plan of the extension. Access through the rear of the house there. And also this opening into the extension. And at first floor level, this is the extension here. So that element is just a single-story porch, and then the two stories across the back. And the existing and proposed roof plan. So this is a flat roof over the extension. Side elevations as existing, that's the garage. You can see the side extension remains, and this is the new rear extension. And it just notes the materials there. The Sonafil membrane in grey, and the walls with aluminium strip facade in black. Windows, black framed aluminium clad timber windows, and black aluminium rainwater goods. And this is the proposed and existing rear elevations. Side elevation to the south. And a cross section through the extension. So you can see the existing roof in the red dashes there, and that's the extension. And this is the wall that's mentioned in the report, built from granite downtakings from the rear block. And that would be within the back garden. So the reasons for refusal were due mainly to the disproportionate scale as a 2-story extension onto a 1.5-story house, and the proposed plain box form cutting into most of the roof, and the elevational treatment, which would exaggerate the harmful effects of scale and form, with the proposed extension dominating the existing dwelling house at the prominent corner site when viewed from Gladstone Place, and failing to be subordinate to the original house and harming its character and that of the surrounding area. and taking into account the architectural merit of the traditional house and its rear elevation, and that it makes a positive contribution to the character of the area. And so the development would be contrary to general principles in the Householder Development Guide, and also to design principles in Policy 14 in NPF 4 and D1 in the Local Development Plan. In particular, the quality of being distinctive and welcoming. Likewise, the development would also be contrary to Policy 16 in NPF 4, which supports house.
An absolute balloon in this.
Sorry. Which supports householder development only where it doesn't have a detrimental impact on the character of the home in terms of its size, design, and materials. And also Policy H1 residential areas, which is the zoning policy, which doesn't support development which would have an adverse impact on the character and appearance of the area. So just moving on to the applicant's statement. The extension is designed as a distinct and separate element, contrasting old with new. It's a contemporary design and is subordinate with the extension not exceeding the ridge height. It's sympathetic to the surroundings, which contain a mix of styles and ages of property, including a number of different extensions and alterations. The granite frontage of the house would remain unaltered, that there would be no undue impact in terms of privacy, overshadowing and separation distances with the neighbours. It would support sustainability, being adaptable and usable, and the granite that would be removed from the rear block would be reused in a wall in the garden. It's also pointed out that the house is not listed or in a conservation area, and there are various photographs provided of properties within the area. So at that point, I'll hand back for members to decide how they wish to proceed.
Thank you, Ms. Green. We need now to consider whether we have sufficient information in front of us today to take a decision on the application. Members, remember, if you do not feel you have enough information to take a decision, you can request a further written information be provided, hearing be arranged, or a site visit to be undertaken. I feel we have sufficient information, but I'll go round everybody. Councillor Cook?
Yep, agree with you.
Councillor MacDonald?
Yep, I agree.
Councillor Thompson?
Agree.
Thank you. Right. As members feel they have sufficient information, we will now hear from Ms. Green on the relevant policies and considerations for this review. Ms. Green, over to you.
Thanks. So these were the relevant policies within NPF 4 and the Local Development Plan. The two policies on climate change and mitigation, the design policies, quality homes, and the zoning policy on residential areas, and also the Householder Design Guide and the materials planning guidance, and Historic Environment Scotland's Managing Change guidance on extensions. So I'll just run quickly through those policies. Policy 1, as previously mentioned, all development proposals should give significant weight to the climate and nature crises. And Policy 2 on mitigation, in particular, these paragraphs about being cited and designed to minimise life cycle greenhouse gas emissions in terms of local living, that would be relevant. Policy 16 on quality homes, as this section where householder development proposals will be supported where they don't have a detrimental impact on the character and environmental quality of the home and the surrounding area, in particular in terms of size, design and materials, and also where they do not have a detrimental impact on neighbours in terms of the physical impact, overshadowing and overlooking. So just looking at the 6 qualities of successful places, which are similar in the local development plan design policy and NPF4's policy. So I've just listed them there, and in particular, this quality to be distinctive, supporting attention to detail of local architectural styles. The zoning policy is policy H1 residential areas, and that states similar to the policy in NPF4 that householder development will be approved in principle if it doesn't constitute overdevelopment, doesn't have an unacceptable impact on the character and amenity of the surrounding area, doesn't result in the loss of open space, and complies with supplementary guidance. That would be the householder guide and the materials guide, which I'll look at in a moment. There's the policy D7, which seeks to retain and reuse historic granite buildings and features. And then the householder design guide, which has a number of general policies. So this one, the principle 1, proposals for extensions, dormers and other alterations should be architecturally compatible in design and scale with the original house and its surrounding area. Materials should be complementary to the original building, and extensions should not serve to overwhelm or dominate the original form or appearance, and should be visually subservient in terms of height, mass and scale. And then I've just included this section for rear house extensions. So for detached dwellings, it states that for single stories, the dimensions would be determined on a site-specific basis. And where properties are of 2 or more stories, 2-story extensions would generally be possible. So the 1.5 stories doesn't fit neatly into that section. I didn't include the general principles about overdevelopment because the report concludes that this isn't overdevelopment in terms of the footprint of the extension. And materials APG planning guidance. This is what it says about metal cladding. So in principle, it finds that metal cladding can be an attractive material for external walls in new buildings and contemporary extensions. And then following on from that, the detailed considerations would be in terms of how it's used and how the jointing, surface finishing, and the way that it might be used in reducing the mass of medium height flat roofed buildings. So this is Historic Environment Scotland's guidance on extensions. And it's the first section about new work acknowledging the old. And this is, the applicant was sort of alluding to this, that it's an assertive contrast. And the guidance says assertive contrast means affirmation of the new as a more or less equal partner to the old, with new and old combined should be of greater lasting value than either on its own. And then a couple of general principles that are relevant. An addition or extension should play a subordinate role and shouldn't dominate the original building. And then this one, that an extension should be modestly scaled and skillfully sited. So overall, determination in accordance with the development plan unless material considerations indicate otherwise. And for this particular application, how would the extension affect the character and amenity of the historic granite building and the surrounding area? And does the proposal comply with the development plan? as a whole, or are there material considerations weighing for or against? And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Green. Any questions from Ms. Green? Not seeing any hands. Okay. In accordance with procedure not circulated, the local review body will now discuss and decide the manner in which the review is to proceed. I would highlight that all representations related to the case have been considered and taken into account. Determination. I would be inclined to uphold the officer's decision here. But I'll go around. Councillor Cook.
I think on balance, I'm probably agreeing with you. Yeah, I'm swithering a bit, but I think on balance I'm with you. But I'll be interested to hear what other people think.
Councillor Thompson.
Yeah, whilst I have, sympathy for the householders and wanting to make their property suitable for future proofing it for future living, it does seem to be an over dominant extension, in my opinion. So I am inclined to agree with you, convener.
Thank you. Councillor MacDonald.
Yes, I would concur with that. I think, there have been attempts to use the granite and that's commendable and all the rest of it. But I think there is a real feel of fairly significant harm to the character of the surrounding area as well of the house that the extension is on it. And whilst, distinctive can be something that we look to do, I think in this particular case, I would go with officer's recommendations. Thank you.
Thank you for that. So that's unanimous then for this reasons stated by the officer and added to by Councillor MacDonald and Councillor.
Sorry, Councillor Copeland, if we could just go back to Councillor Cook, because I don't think he'd quite made his mind up.
Oh, sorry, John.
Sorry.
No, I'm make it unanimous. I was just swithering a wee bit.
Sorry, I jumped the gun there, John. Sorry. Right. We've therefore agreed unanimously to go with the officer's recommendations. Thank you. Right. John, believe you're leaving us now.
I am. Goodbye and thank you.
And Councillor Lawrence, I think you're
See you
coming in.
later.
Yeah. Thank you for your help today.
Yes, I'm back.
Right, thank you. Welcome back. Right, we're going to the third review. So the third review in respect of the decision to refuse the application for the installation of fence to front, respectively, at 36 Devonshire Road, Aberdeen, AB10 6XR. Planning reference 250433. We'll again hear from the planning advisor in attendance, Lucy Green, who will provide us with a brief description of the application proposal and reminder of the reasons why the application was refused. Again, I would point out that Ms. Green attends today's meeting to provide us with the necessary professional planning guidance because she has not been involved in the earlier consideration of the application under review. Ms. Green will not, however, be asked to express any view on the merits of the proposed development, and in effect her role is a neutral one, involving the provision of factual information and guidance only. Ms. Green.
Thank you, members. I'll just share my screen. Okay. So this is a request for review against an application refused under delegated powers for the installation of a fence to the front at 36 Devonshire Road. And the review was submitted with all the necessary information within the time limit. The applicant has indicated that there are new matters which have been raised in the review submissions, and those were sent out by email to members with the agenda. So I'll cover those in a moment. In terms of the procedure by which the review will be conducted, the applicant has expressed the view that a hearing should take place in order for the applicant to convey the impact that this has had and answer questions from the LRB. And the review should not proceed on the basis of the information provided. But I'll first provide some background to the case before I hand over to legal and back to members to decide how to proceed. So this is the site location plan. This relates to the front garden area of the ground floor flat at 36 Devonshire Road. And the fence in question is just along this boundary here. So street view, and you can see this is the boundary in question here, and that it's got a hedge in this image still. But this is the ground floor flat belonging to the applicant, and that's the boundary in question. So this is the site plan, and the fence is shown in grey there. And it's wooden slatted fence painted grey at a height of 1.7 metres at the moment, and built in wood. And this is an elevational image of the fence. So the reason for refusal of the application was the excessive height of the fence and the alien design and materials for the context within the area, which was felt to adversely disrupt the regular and extensive rhythm of largely low boundary treatments in stone railings or hedging that's been established in the street, and which makes a significant contribution to the historic character and sense of place. So in terms of policy, the development fails to preserve the character and appearance of the surrounding area, contrary to policies on quality homes in NPF 4, residential areas in the local development plan. And the proposed works would also be contrary to guidance in the Householder Development Guide. And the fence harms the distinctiveness of the surrounding area and is therefore contrary to policies on design in the local development plan and NPF 4. And the works would also fail to preserve the character and appearance of the conservation area, contrary to HES's policy for Scotland and policy 7 on historic assets in NPF 4, as well as policy D6 on historic environment in the local development plan. Summary of the applicant's statement is that the 1.7 metre fence is in place, and they offered to reduce the height to 1.4 metres by removing 2 slats. They also offered to paint it in a National Trust green and grow clematis over the upper part of the fence. They state that not applying for permission was a genuine oversight. By way of background, it's stated that previously there was a 2-metre hedge which was jointly maintained, and that was partially removed, and then the canes and tinsel on the boundary, plastic poles and fairy lights, and the applicant states that these are not in keeping with the conservation area, and that the applicant understands the value of conserving the historic character of the area, but has human reasons for requiring the fence. She also refers to advice from the enforcement officer, that was advice which referred to the reason for the fence not being permitted development. And the applicant also refers to another fence nearby, which is of greater height. And I can just confirm that the report of handling notes that that fence has been in place for more than 10 years and so is beyond enforcement action. So there there's one representation of objection and 2 of support, and those state that the fence has an unacceptable impact on the street scene, contrary to policies H1 on residential areas and D1 on design in the LDP, that the fence would set a precedent for tall fences at the front of other properties. In support, it's stated that the fence improves the appearance of the street and that its finish complements surrounding granite, and also that the fence is in keeping with other boundary treatments on the street. And the Community Council made no comments. So at this point, I will hand over to legal, and I'll just share the slide on new matters. Just one moment.
Thank you, Ms Green. First of all, as Ms Green has said, there is a request from the applicant to speak to the local review body. And within the local review body regulations, the only way that could happen is if the local review body decide that it requires further information before determining the review. That further information can be by way of a site visit, further written submissions, or by holding a hearing session. In this situation, following this request, the only way of the applicant speaking to the local review body would be by way of the local review body convening a hearing session. The procedure for hearing sessions is governed by the local review body regulations. All interested parties would require to be invited and given the opportunity to speak at any hearing. The regulations and circular are very clear that the hearing would have to be held in public. Members, you will now need to decide whether or not you need further information relating to planning considerations to be able to determine this review by way of holding a hearing session, or whether you believe you have sufficient information to be able to determine this review. I will hand back to the convener for members to consider whether they have sufficient information, and then I can move on to the consideration of new matters issue.
Thank you. Members, I feel we have sufficient information in front of us today to make a decision. Does anybody think otherwise? Councillor MacDonald?
Convener, I haven't had an email that I'm aware of that was mentioned with regard to this case. Have other members of the committee received a separate email, or does it matter? Is my question.
If I can jump in, sorry, Councillor MacDonald, I'm not, which email are you referring to?
I thought Ms Green said that there had been an email, maybe it's just an email that went to council officers or to the legal department rather than something that came to committee members. Would that be correct?
I believe that would perhaps be the email that Ms Green was referring to, but perhaps she can clarify. There was an email certainly that came into officers, which has prompted this this intervention at this LRB this morning, but maybe Ms Green can clarify.
Yeah, there was an email that went out on the 24th. It went to members and it included unredacted details. It has on it.
It was issued by Lindsay McBean.
Yeah.
On the 24th of November with the pack. Councillor MacDonald, you were definitely sent that. I can see that.
I have found that email, but I haven't read it because I didn't realise it was. I just hadn't appreciated that there were other attachments there. So,
well, in the circumstances, I'm happy to adjourn for 5 minutes to give you a chance to read it.
Thank you very much, convener.
We'll adjourn for 5 minutes.
I haven't been clock watching, but I've read it, convener.
Fine, thank you. Right. We now need to consider whether we have sufficient information in front of us today to take a decision on the application. Members, remember, if you do not feel you have enough information to take a decision, you can request that further written information be provided, hearing be arranged, or a site visit be undertaken. I am happy that I have enough information at this moment in time to make a decision. Councillor MacDonald. Your view?
I agree with you.
Right. Councillor Thompson?
Yep, agreed.
Councillor Lawrence?
Sorry, yes, I did. Thank you.
Right. So we've agreed that we have sufficient information to make a decision and no other procedures are required. Right. As members feel they have sufficient information, we now hear from, I think, legal first, but it should be Ms. Green on the relevant policies and consideration for this review. Who's going first, Ms. Green or legal?
Thank you, convener. I'll go first in terms of the consideration of new matters. Ms. Green has helpfully put the slide in relation to new matters on the screen. It is for the LRB to consider whether or not to accept the new information, bearing in mind the statutory test, which is outlined on the slide. In this case, the applicant has provided some information explaining, in their view, why that material could not have been presented to the planning officer during the application stage. And that information is extremely sensitive. And therefore, I would recommend that we move into private session to consider that information, which is of a sensitive nature. I'll hand over to Mr. Masson.
Thank you, Elena. Given we are moving into a private session, would all members and officers remain in the meeting? Would everyone else, including the applicant, leave the meeting and immediately rejoin the meeting? You will then be held in a lobby until I bring you back in once we move back into the public session. So if I can ask everybody else to leave and rejoin. Okay, D. Carroll. Could D. Carroll please leave the meeting? All right, I'm just going to have to remove D. Carroll. And that appears to be everybody that's left.
Okay, thank you for that, Mark.
Thank you, Mr. Masson. Thank you, members. I wanted to read out a statement from the applicant.
Sorry, just bear with us. I've just got to stop the recording. Just remembered that. Thank goodness.